Welcome to the Raging Heart On podcast. I'm your host, Brian Banks. This is where we get raw and real and talk about all these fucking feelings. And today we're talking about fucking feelings. I feel bad for saying that because Mallory was Miss America.
It's okay.
Mallory Hagan.
Stramera.
It's new.
It's new.
Stramera's
it's brand new.
I know.
I just got married.
And I was so used to like Mallory Hagan.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why I hyphenated it. I'm not getting rid of the Hagan. I gotta keep that. I worked 35 years with the last name Hagan. We're gonna keep it.
So, Mallory, I'm excited to have you here today because you have been a very visible ally for our community. But going and doing some research on you, like you've been quite a fighter for a long time. Mm. Like you have really spent your whole life looking out for others.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. I think it's a noble thing, but it's also interesting to me, like, where does that come from? Like, where did Mallory grow up? I know in Alabama, or Mississippi, right?
Alabama.
And then, how does that happen?
I think now that we have tools like the Enneagram, I've learned that I'm an Enneagram 8. People who are Enneagram 8s are very justice oriented, very black and white. You couple that with me being a Capricorn, somebody who is also very justice oriented, wants to do the right thing, wants things to be in order in a certain way. So I have some tools now that I'm older that help me sort of understand where these personality traits might come from. But at my core, I was raised by really young parents, and I'll never forget the first time I got into a playground altercation was probably first or second grade. And apparently, this is a story from my mom, but allegedly some girls in my class had really been like bullying me for some time, and then finally one day I just hauled off and smacked a bitch.
You don't remember it?
I don't really remember it, but I do remember getting called to the principal's office, and then my teacher, who happened to be a high school classmate of my mom, I was in trouble, but she was like, but really, like, they kind of had been egging her on for a while, and she finally just stood up for herself.
Coming.
Yeah. And so I remember when we got home, my mom basically said, you're not in trouble. You stood up for yourself, and you should. And so I think that was like the little bit of permission I needed. And in addition to that, I was just physically bigger than everyone else in elementary school. So I kind of started to be a little bit of a playground protector, if you will. And like, if you're going to mess with my friend, you got to come through me kind of thing. So I think that started at a young age, but it was really encouraged by my parents, allowing me that space to stand up for myself in that first moment, and telling me that, if I was standing up for myself, I wouldn't get in trouble. And so I just kind of took that a step further and started standing up for everybody else too.
But that personality trait, and you being black and white rule follower, you being
I wouldn't call myself a rule follower, but I'm justice oriented.
But it just as easily could have gone the other way, because somewhere in you was instilled a sense of justice for the other side. I mean, let's be blunt. Like, you are a pretty white girl who was Miss America, who could right now be speaking at a national convention.
I would never. Oh,
exactly.
You mean what? Where does the love of other people that are unlike myself come from?
Yeah, because
definitely instilled by my parents. First of all, my mom owns a dance studio. So I grew up in the world of dance and entertainment, where you often found yourself surrounded by people who were different than you. And more specifically in that time, so early 90s, I was surrounded by men who were gay. Yeah. Now, couple that with the fact that my mom also worked in a hair salon, where that would be the other place you would find yourself surrounded by, in particular, men who are gay. And so for as long as I can remember, and my earliest memories were shaped by one of my mom's dear friends, Steven, who's gay, and Russ, who was a drag queen. I remember my mom helping with Russ's choreography. I mean, I must have been 5 or 6. I'm asking, like, what is Russ doing? Why is, but it also goes to show you that kids that age go, oh, okay, and keep it moving.
Yes.
But yeah, I was surrounded by gay men my whole life. And I think as I got older and was involved in things like show choir and theater throughout high school, that just continued.
Did you were you in show choir in Opelika?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went to Opelika.
I was Albertville.
Oh.
Center stage. So I was older than you. But
yes.
Yeah, I'm sure our two schools battled. Like there was Enterprise, Opelika, Albertville, Clinton. Those were the big show choirs.
Yes. Yeah. Opelika ovations.
Yeah. You guys are
you better slice and point.
Yeah, absolutely. Jazz hands, blade hands. No, I just, ever since I've met you the first time and seeing you when you were doing your campaign here in Huntsville, Alabama, and you were running for state house, and which you had done before in your hometown, correct?
Yeah, I ran for a congressional seat. So I ran for Alabama House District 3, which, is a larger swath of land, a larger constituent base, and then ran for House District 25 here in Madison. Yeah.
Because, like I see you at the Pride events, and you did not shy away from the people you were looking to serve, which I think a lot of politicians, especially, they will go, let's not put that out there. Of course, I'm going to take care of you. Hush, hush. And you went for it. You were so brave. And for us.
Thank you. I don't think that's brave. But I will tell you that it was at the disapproval of many local Democrats.
Oh, I'm sure.
Which is just so bizarre to me.
Well, because they are looking at things politically. And I guess that's what tells me that it comes from your heart, because if you were truly seeking to be like political only, there were easy roads for that. And you have a resume that could serve you well, but maybe it couldn't serve you so well in your authenticity and who you really are. But yeah, there would have been easier roads for you.
Oh, if you mean putting my name on the Republican side of the ticket, absolutely. I could have done that, and I could have done it in spades. And I have been asked / told on multiple occasions, you should just run as a Republican. I'm like, but that's not who I am. Those are not my values. No, and that's not what I believe in. And so that will not be for me.
Yeah. I do think it's going to be people like you that are going to pave the way for conservative areas like ours to expand their thinking, to maybe take a second look at a group of people that you have written off. And I think that's really powerful. But this is not the first time, because I've read where you took on the pageant system.
I forget about that.
After, it was a pretty big deal. You took on the pageant system after you already had your crown. Yeah.
Well, it's a lot easier to do that. You're talking about 2 different places of privilege, right? So
true.
Well, I already won Miss America. What are they going to do? Take it away from me?
But I've already won Miss America. What does it matter? Could have been your question too. But instead, you said, no, I'm going to fix this shit for the girls that are coming after me. Yeah. You didn't have to do that. Yeah. Like, you could have said, you know what? I learned the hard way, and they can too. Like, that could have been your attitude. That could have been your. No, I thought that was pretty cool, because even during your campaign, I never heard any of these things about you. And I'm like, this chick's got like some crazy stories of standing up for others, fighting the system. And
yeah, I think going back to sort of that place of privilege, both in the way I look in a state like Alabama, it allows me to engage in conversations with people who may see me and make an assumption about what I believe or what my values are, and sort of opens up a door to a community of straight white people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That see me and think that we have some things in common. And the truth is that we do. And by using those commonalities, we're able to have conversations about other communities and their access and equity and things like that. And I think you're right about the Miss America organization and everything that transpired, which in short is just
Tell us a little bit about what that was.
Yeah, in short, it is that there was there were many systemic issues within the program of Miss America, and I'm sure anyone listening is not surprised by that, given that pageantry doesn't always have the best reputation. But in my experience, competing in the Miss America organization allowed me the opportunity to develop who I was as a young woman, to figure out what I thought and what I believed in, and how to share those things with people in a way that was diplomatic. It taught me how to speak in front of audiences of thousands of people and how to communicate with different age groups and socioeconomic backgrounds and demographics. It really taught me a lot being a part of that program. But after I won Miss America, and in the years following, the person who was in charge of Miss America, as it turns out, was incredibly misogynistic. What? Shocker. And was, writing emails about myself and other winners and other people involved in the program, very demeaning things that really were none of his business or anyone else's. And so myself and a couple of other former Miss Americas and
but he was attacking your appearance.
My appearance and my personal life, and making a lot of assumptions and spreading rumors about me, and going so far as to eliminate opportunity for professional work post Miss America. I mean, it was really deep. There was a lot going on, but for the purposes of today, we were able to bring that to light using his own words against him. He put them in an email. I don't know how you get to be in his positions of power in the entertainment industry without knowing that you don't put anything in writing.
But nobody had
checked him.
No.
Yeah.
And
no one had said, hey, you shouldn't talk about women like this, more specifically the women that you aim to serve.
And I think a lot of us learn that in childhood. Like, you do some stupid shit and your parents check you. But I am afraid some folks are growing up in homes that things are covered up for them, and they're just never held accountable. And it doesn't make for good grown-ups.
Yeah, some people definitely didn't have their mom take the door off the hinges and pull everything out of their room.
It could have saved his job.
I think
his little ass checked when he was little.
Yeah, I think that there are some other personality defects at play there, but yeah.
I just thought that was a really incredible story, because you really did get him taken care of. And he was over the pageant,
he
correct?
And the entire board of the Miss America organization resigned.
You're like, yeah, not just him. All them hoes.
The whole board resigned. But that was really the catalyst for me running for office. And I think that was the important part, is people turned to me in my community in Lee County and said, if you've been dealing with this and you were able to handle this, something of this magnitude in the media, the way that you have, and just really how you've dealt with this, we think you might be able to run for office and do really well. So, of course, I said no, because that was scary.
One of the headlines, it was like, the storm is coming, or was that an op-ed you wrote? Or
no, it was, I had done a Facebook Live, and I was very angry because all of the things that had transpired with the Miss America program happened over Christmas. So it was like December 17th or something through the new year. And that's just a slow media time, right? So it really picked up, and there was a lot of noise around it. And the Miss America board of directors basically put out a statement that said, we're just going to take a break and we'll revisit this. And I was like, no, that's not an appropriate response to what's transpiring. And basically said that they thought the storm was going to pass. And I was like, no, that would be me. I'm not going anywhere.
I'm not passing.
No,
hopefully.
Not in that regard.
But even when you were running for Miss America, your platform was about taking care
Sure.
of others. Like
child abuse prevention. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most people don't realize that the women who participate in Miss America do have a personal platform that they advocate for. And unfortunately, myself and many other women in my family are victims of child abuse. And anyone who's experienced that knows.
You yourself were too?
Mm-hmm. Anyone who's experienced that knows that the impact is long lasting. There are ripple effects that impact people's families for generations. And so it was really important to me to use the opportunity of being Miss America to talk about something that was really important and really impactful. And it just so happened to be the year that the Penn State Sandusky case all came to light. So it kind of felt, I don't want to say serendipitous. No one wishes for child abuse to be present at all, but at least having that level of visibility around it then impacted that.
And I know, like, for me personally, like, there have been moments over my life that first informed you that, yes, that was abuse, and you don't realize it until those moments. And it takes someone telling their story, and then it takes hearing stories along the way to lead you from, oh shit, that was abuse. Like, he shouldn't have touched me like that, to, oh shit, I'm carrying the burden of the shame for this, to even at my age now, like in therapy now, like still dealing with just some of the after effects that he died years ago. And I had a moment last year where I just allowed myself to feel sorry for myself for the first time. Not in a way that I got trapped in it, but just to go, that wasn't fucking fair. Like, that sucks. Someone did that to you. And it also sucks. It's your burden to clean up that mess. And then I took a breath and said, but little Brian, if we're going to get over this, you got to clean this mess up. Like, you got to sort this out. And you think you've sorted it out because you can only like take care of the steps you get to, you know.
You got to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
Yes.
And it is hard. It's hard to open up the wound and deal with it. And then you kind of start to feel better and you're like, oh, maybe it's all good. And then somewhere along the path that a stitch pops and you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Or you get into a relationship and your husband says, why do you keep shutting off from me?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think people truly understand the lifelong impact that not just abuse, but also assault can have, and how that impacts how you parent. It impacts how you are in your relationship. It impacts the relationship you have with your caretakers or your parents or guardians, whoever it was. So it's very layered. And the interesting thing is that while I was traveling the country speaking about preventing child abuse, that's when I realized that I had experienced abuse. So that had been my platform. And the title was Prevention is Possible. And as I was going into these meetings with the International Center for Missing and Exploited Children and Prevent Child Abuse America, and like doing all these very high level things, I was learning as I was going, right? Because I was only 24. I wasn't, I didn't know what I didn't know. And as I was traveling, I was having this revelation at the same time while out on the road by myself and staying in hotels alone, and just sort of dealing with holy moly. And then trying to think about, how do I have this conversation with my parents? I definitely need a therapist. I don't have time for a therapist. I'm traveling the country.
Well, and
it wasn't as easy as just a Skype and or Zoom 1, 2, 3 at that time.
Yeah, therapy's easy now.
Much easier
compared
now.
to even 5 years ago. And the accessibility to therapy, and I think the more we talk about it, for me, like just doing this, because I think in the gay community, we've gone through some shit, like. And then we wonder, why can't we connect with each other? Why can't we have happy relationships? Like, why can't we stop being whores? And why can't we actually love the person trying to love us? And there's so much to it that we're starting to realize, okay, there's some baggage here.
Yeah.
You know, our baggage before, we just treated it with humor, and we were the funny people.
Yeah.
Like, we were.
Well, I think as you get older, you realize that not all, but many of the burdens I face, you likely face, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And a lot of our own personal issues come from shame, come
Yes.
from doubt or insecurity. I mean,
When I think
those are universal feelings.
Yeah, ours are very basic is shame.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I mean, when you think about that from the perspective of a woman, we have layered shame for all of the different ways society tells us we should be, or you're not a woman unless, or if you do this, I mean, the shame is so universal.
I know, but we are autistic in our thinking, and I'd like to talk about mine. You know, like, but okay, yeah, wow, like, yeah, you're right.
Well, I mean, but
I've been so caught up in mine this past year in therapy, and like,
how universal is that?
Woe is the gays, woe, poor us. But oh my God, you're right. Like, you guys had some shitty stuff too.
But everyone does. I think that's what we're all learning collectively together as a society, is that all of us are carrying a lot of burdens. And even the people we don't agree with, and the people that we see and we're like, how can you be so stupid? How can you be so bigoted? How can you be so racist? Those people are carrying their own burdens and shame and trauma. And
absolutely,
it makes it very difficult to continue to rise above and to continue to try and have compassion, empathy for people, even people that are, in my mind, doing and saying horrendous things. But I have to remember that, like, we're all, but as you said, not all of us are doing the work. And that's where the difference is. Shame is universal. Insecurity is universal. All of those sort of feelings, it's those of us who are trying to put in the work that are, it's like realizing that it's a much bigger problem.
And I think, making space for people to understand, making space for people to hear you. Like, have you ever met somebody and you're like, I don't fucking like them. Like, I don't like anything about them. Like, they're not a person that I can vibe with.
Yeah.
And when I did hair for 20 years, like, doing hair shows, traveling the country with all the big hairdressers, and being on stage with people that had TV shows and had been on the Oprah Winfrey show. There's a lot of personalities, and it's big and it's fun. It's exciting. But yeah, you meet a lot of people that you're like, I don't like her, or I don't like him. And then one of our leaders in a company that I did hair color for, she did this weekend retreat. And it was sort of like the Emmaus walk that churches do. Have you heard of that?
No.
De Colores.
No.
So it's kind of cool. Like, we went to this cabin for 3 days. I don't know anybody. I'm not even working for the company yet. This is kind of my interview process. And in that 3 days, you're locked in that cabin and you do some like internal self work. By the end of it, you love them all, because people got real that weekend and they got authentic about the shit they were going through. And then you started to see that person differently, you know? And if we keep talking about politics and our differences and don't get a little deeper and find out what makes a person so fucked up and weird, but it's funny how you can love a person even in their weirdness. I mean, in relationships, you're married now. You know, like, the thing that used to, I don't know how long you've just gotten married. So I know for me, like 10 years later, I look at Michael and the things that used to just annoy the piss out of me about him. I understand how he ticks now. I understand what he went through as a child. I understand where that comes from. And now I look at those things and I'm like, I love him so much. And then things that I used to really love about him, I'm like, he's going to snore for 30 years.
Yeah.
I just know. And he's so little.
But well, snores. I'm the snorer in our relationship.
Are you really?
So that's just how that goes. But I think you're right. Going back to the more you learn about people and the deeper you get with them, the more you're able to have that empathy and compassion for who they are and what they've been through. And the issue I think that we see when it comes to not only our personal beliefs, but our personal politics is there's I don't know where this comes from, but the 5 why. Like, so many people don't ask themselves why past a 1 why. So I believe X. Okay, tell me why. And people will state that why, and they don't go any layer deeper. And so now I'm really grateful that I get the opportunity to work with young women who are preparing for Miss America. And I do that not because I care one iota.
Are you coaching now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like Bill. We have a mutual friend, Bill Alberson.
Yeah, I love Bill.
He's a mess.
Bill is a mess. I don't coach because I care about pageantry. I coach because I care about developing young people.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things to do is to introduce this concept of asking why, not 1 time or 2, but 5 times. Like, let's get to the root of why you believe this thing you believe. And if you can answer that question 5 times, if you can ask yourself why and layer down to the root of it, then we're cooking with gas.
Yeah.
Now we can understand where that belief system comes from, where it's rooted, and not necessarily change it, perhaps, but maybe find some commonalities or whatever we need to do in order to explore that thought further. And I think that's what's frustrating me right now about not only politics, but just people in general, is there's this sort of lack of critical thinking about where our thoughts and beliefs come from and why we have them.
But I'm not sure that, I know right now at my age, I am learning to let feelings come up instead of go down.
Same.
And that is, that's really difficult at first.
It is.
Because when I get that knot in my throat, I'm like, boop, I'm hungry. Go put some food on that bitch.
I'm hungry and I'd like a vodka soda, a martini. Thank you so much.
So if you ever see me, like, you'll know I'm upset or angry because I'm standing with the refrigerator doors open.
That's your comfort.
Anything to push that feeling down.
Yeah.
And it's not until recently that I have learned to not mastered it, but sit with feelings and to be curious about a feeling. Like, when a feeling comes up, because so many things we tell ourselves, that's silly, you shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, a best friend hurts your feelings and you're like, quit whining. Like, you should have known she's done this, this, and this. Instead of just going, this sucks, like, this hurts. And now to sit back and go, where do I feel that in my body? Like, and not try to figure out why I feel that, but just feel it. And then start exploring it. But first, the thing is to feel it. But yeah, I think we've all been, especially Gen Xers, like our parents were like, I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh, trust me. I'm a millennial, but I got that too.
Yeah.
I got stop crying or I'll give you a reason to cry. That's okay. And my mom and dad were just doing the best they could.
Same.
I harbor no resentment or hard feelings there.
I think my mom was 21 with 4 of us.
Oh my God.
So I'm like, we lived.
You survived.
Like, what more could we ask for?
Yeah.
I can't imagine being 21 with 1.
Yeah.
And I have a 19-year-old, but
I mean, I will say, so one of the most beautiful things about recently getting married is becoming a bonus mom, and they're 7 and 9. And it has been such a beautiful opportunity to, first of all, take a look at my inner child, because parenting as I'm sure at every age that you've experienced, is an opportunity to think about what you were doing and thinking and feeling in that age.
Whether you want to or not.
And it has been really wild to get to sit with, when I was 7, what was I thinking and feeling, and who was watching me most of the time, because my parents were young. And I mean, just all of those things that are constantly sort of bubbling up. And I don't know that I've ever had such empathy or compassion for parents in that way until now, right? Like everybody who's ever been a parent has been forced to either relive trauma or reevaluate how they were parented, break cycles, do better. And I mean, I'm sure there's a handful
or
of folks
foreclose on it and just keep trucking ahead.
Yeah.
And
well, there's
sadly,
a handful of folks who don't do better, don't aspire to do better, and
what is it?
I hate
Fight,
that.
flight, fawn,
Freeze.
and freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think in parenting that, because those kiddos take you back to some moments that you aren't just really carrying around in your pocket until they turn 8 years old, and then you know what happened to you at 8, or you know what the kids at school said to you at 8, and it's hard not to be an adult and go back and handle it the way you wish you would have back then. But like my son got bullied at school one day. I picked him up and he was crying, just devastated. They picked partners and he didn't get picked till the very end. And the last kid was like, no, I don't want him on my team. And I picked him up at after school and he was devastated. And I wanted to like beat that little kid's ass, like just walk back in there, choke him out in front of everybody. But I put Grayson in the car because I wish somebody had helped me through those moments and said, this is not about you.
Yeah.
This has so little to do with you. And had a really special moment with him to get him to look outside of himself and what could be going on with this kid, what could have caused this, and is this generally how this kid acts or no? And Grayson's like, no, like he's usually my friend. I was like, so maybe he's going through some stuff.
Yeah. But
I just don't want you to make it your burden to bear and to carry the rest of your life. Like doing hair, there are women that will not to this day at 70 years old wear bangs because somebody in the 3rd grade told them how stupid they looked with bangs.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. Or don't cut it above my ears. I have big ears. Because some 1st grader said you have big ears. And I'm like,
yeah.
But your ears are half the size of everybody's ears in the world. Like,
but it's more about just how long you've been carrying what someone said to you. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really cool for you to get to experience that with even his children, your stepchildren too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they feel like ours, and they've got a great mom. So we recognize that there are adults in their lives who love them. But I think the best part is sort of going back to what you were talking about with Grayson. It's like being able to know what we know now about mental health and about depression and anxiety and hell, ADHD. I mean, just things that we didn't have the tools or the language for when we were growing up, and to be able to spot behavior at their age and go, that looks a little like you're eating to suppress feelings. So maybe we need to have a conversation about feelings. And we have one child who doesn't talk about feelings at all. And we have another child who's very expressive with emotions. And how do we teach them how to share those emotions without it becoming a roller coaster of rage? And then how do we get you to share emotions at all? But, I think we were talking about just surviving growing up, and my parents were great parents. We didn't just survive, but we're all learning as we go.
Yeah.
So now to have some really intentional language and tools to be able to parent with, I think is really special, and hopefully raise 2 very emotionally intelligent, kind, and compassionate young men in a society that very much needs that.
Yeah. And, just for me, I always had to remember, like, people are like, you're not your child's friend, you're whatever. Like, all I had to remember was everything I do with him has to be about raising a good grown up one day that can do this without me, and that the world will appreciate that they are a part of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were times that he would get really upset and I would go, buddy, my only job is to make a good grown up out of you, because I want the world to appreciate your existence in it. And he didn't quite get it then.
No, well, I mean, did any of us?
But as he would get older, like, he would sure point it out in other people if their existence was not appreciated. Like, why is she acting like that?
Yeah,
Like,
you're like,
he literally
clear.
is like the best kid ever. Like, he's such a good kid.
My parents were divorced for a time, so there was a point in my childhood where I lived predominantly with my mom, and
are they together?
They are together now.
My parents did the same thing twice, though.
Oh, just once here. But yeah, they were apart, and there was a period, and it was like really formative time frame, right? I had to clean the house before I could do anything on Fridays for the weekend, and there was just a lot of rules about like how things were going to be at home. And if I said I hate you once, I said it sometimes under my breath, but I was just so angry. And I think hormones and growing up and being a teenager, all of that. But I was telling my mom about this the other day, and she said, you were about 16 when you turned around and said, thank you for making me clean. And thank you for teaching me how to like adult, basically, because all my friends are clueless. Like, I came home one day and I was like, my friends don't know how to use a washing machine. They don't know how to use a dishwasher. They don't know how to fold their clothes. Like, what? And so,
but there's a thing with moms and daughters, because doing hair for 20 years and like I would do their hair when they were little, and then I would do their hair as a teenager, and their moms and the daughters hated each other.
Yeah.
And I would just tell the mom, I'd be like, give it a few years.
Yeah.
Like, give it a few years.
But because mine came early. I think mine was more like middle school. Middle school was really tough.
Well, I think hormones and people don't realize how powerful hormones are.
Well, and that's another thing we're all learning now. We're like, wait a minute, hold on. Especially as a woman who's currently in the process of trying to grow our family, all of these things that I never knew about. I'm like, I'm 35 years old. I never knew that these 4 days and these 3 days and then these 6 days. And it's just this constant level of learning about.
Isn't it weird?
It's crazy. And then I think back to middle school and dealing with teenagers. And
don't you wish you had kept a journal and a calendar to go?
I'm so glad I did.
That's why I beat that bitch. Like, oh, now that is not my fault.
I'm glad I didn't. But you know what I find funny though? There's occasionally the time where I'm back home in Opelika and I'll run into someone and I'm like, God, I know I hated her in high school, but I don't know why. Can't tell you why. Hey, how are you? Like, no issue now. But I'm like, God, we were all just like so awful and mean and like combative.
Girls are rough with each other. I feel like I got a real insight. I raised a son, but doing hair, and then my nieces were born. Like, girls are a real different challenge, because if a little boy burns your house down, like, that was not his intention. Like, he honestly just was not paying attention. I mean, my child put Hot Wheels in the microwave when he and his little best friend were little in the salon. Smoke, they're burning in the microwave, and they're both like,
yeah.
They just wanted to see what it would do. If a girl burns your house down, you better think back 6 months ago. Like, she's carrying some shit. Like, she remembers something's unresolved.
And she doesn't have the tools yet to understand how to express her anger and work through.
She's trying tools out. This is what she's doing. Matches. Yeah, it's a different thing. Funny. Not to say all boys are easy and girls are tough, because girls are just like, they're smarter than boys.
See, we could sit here and talk about this for as long as I'm alive. But how much of that is just what's been allowed and expected versus what's nature and nurture? I don't know. There's some things that I witness other parents say and do, and they're like, well, that's just boys being boys, as we've heard a million times, or girls are just different. And you're like, well, are we?
You, like it with everything else, it can't be left unchecked. Like, you can't just sit back and go, oh, you burned the house down. No, like, these things have to be corrected, and an uncorrected boy makes a terrible grown-up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because those hormones kick in a little later.
Yeah.
And
you know, one of my this is probably going to end up on a t-shirt for me as a parent at some point, but I'm always like, who are you talking to? That's
oh my God.
So somebody else say something, I'm like, who are you talking to? You're not talking to me. You're talking to somebody else.
Oh, I thought you were just investigating. No, when they talk to you that way.
No. Yeah, I get a little attitude, and my first phrase is, "Who are you talking to?"
What do they say?
I just want to make sure we're on the same page. That you're talking to me. Oh, okay. Did you want to try again? Like, yeah, that's my first line of defense.
Is that what your mom said to you?
No, I usually got more of like a whack or a smack.
Yeah. I know my parents, my parents were really
gentle
good.
Parenting.
And I'm so thankful my parents were parents when they were, because they would be in prison. Like, I mean, we just didn't know the rules. Like, there were no car seats. There were no, you know.
Oh my God.
You could go in and buy cigarettes for your aunts, like at the gas station. And it doesn't seem that long ago.
Well, I mean, I remember, I guess all of us do, but I think about, like, I used to fly by myself when I was like 8 to go to my grandma's house. And remember, you could just walk up to the gate at an airport?
No.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that, but I was older.
Obviously pre 9/11.
We were poor. So when you're really, really poor, you're just told all airplanes are crashing and you don't want to get on that thing. Isn't it funny? I remember the first time I flew was in high school.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the only place I ever flew was to see my grandma.
Where does she live now?
She lived in Memphis. I don't know why. I don't know.
It's further from your hometown to Memphis than it is from here.
And it was then too. It was a much longer drive.
Yeah, now it's like 3 hours from here, right?
Yeah, it's not far.
So, yeah, I think I've just always seen the things you've done, and they haven't gone unnoticed, especially for our community. And for, like I said, like, this is a thing you do, like taking care of people that are less than, or the world would think would be less than.
I was going to say, let's not phrase it that way.
No, but like the others.
Maybe let's say I've always been happy to stand up for, we'll call it an underdog, somebody who has been maybe.
And you have.
Not.
Do you think you'll do the political thing again?
I can't see that for myself right now, but maybe in the future. I don't know.
Yeah.
Never say never.
I just think you would be so good, because you're really smart and you're really centered about.
We've got some work to do here locally. I think the reason that I felt so discouraged after this last election in 2022 was our voter turnout was pretty abysmal. And it's very difficult to spend your own personal money and your time and your energy knocking doors every day, working really hard. I mean, waking up at 5:30 or 6, going to bed at midnight daily for months on end to run a successful campaign. And
are you really comfortable bragging on yourself?
No, I'm not. But it's very difficult to do that and have people not even show up to vote. It doesn't have to be to vote for me, just vote in general.
Yeah, that was
no one came out to vote that election cycle. And that to me is.
It was a midterm.
Yeah. It's really frustrating though.
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter.
No, but I think historically that's.
Well, the reason I brought that up is because I think people look at Huntsville and Madison and they see that we're actually a city, or both cities are working really well across the aisle, right? Like,
yes.
Even though a lot of people are, quote, in nonpartisan positions, it's clear what their partisan politics are. But we also have representatives from this area that are Democrats. We have Republicans. And it's because we are forced to push and pull in that direction, this area is growing. And
we're a unique area in that people are educated.
People's
incomes are higher because of education and because of opportunity and jobs. But
I think people, the reason I brought that up is people assume then that there's more progress here by way of who's running for office and whether or not they get elected. And if all of those very smart, educated, well-to-do people don't show up and vote, then we just end up with the same old, same old. So,
when I think a lot of times in state politics, especially the Huntsville area, people just tap out and go, what are they even doing? Because it's what you're seeing on TV doesn't represent our area as well. And I think people that have just moved into this area, I sell real estate, and they're a little confused because they're looking around and they see this place that they live, and it's not really translating on what they're seeing on the TV. And I do think it kind of discourages them, but I do think that opens a huge opportunity for people like you that they would understand more.
Yeah.
However, I know political
it's hard.
It's expensive. And
it's hard. And I mean, I could also sit here and talk for days about the internal side of politics and how there's so much infighting among party people and party leaders, and there's factions, and people sort of cut off their nose to spite their face and throw up hurdles. And so it's more than just getting people in the base to vote for you. It's also all these other political things that are transpiring, and it's just kind of a lot.
Yeah.
So
I
think for now I'll focus on raising
how did
kids.
you how did you unpack all that when it was over? Like spending all the work, doing the work, and I mean, you were out there, like you were going for it. And
I don't know that I really did. I think I,
just kind of kept going.
Keep putting one foot in front of the other. That's my life story.
Oh yeah.
One foot in front of the other.
You'll deal with this in 5 years.
Yeah.
It's going to come up in some feeling, and you're going to figure out where you feel it in your body.
It's it's a lot. And I think I'm a person, I deal with things very, like, I go inward. I don't, like, I want to go to therapy, obviously, but I'm not like a...
Do you go to therapy now?
Mm-hmm.
I love therapy.
I'm not like a go sit and have a drink with my girlfriends and chit chat and like talk through it. That I'm not an external processor like that. I'm much more internal.
Does that make it difficult to do therapy, you think?
Yeah, it makes it difficult to stick with a therapist.
Yeah. I think for me, for years, it's been that I can intellectualize all the stuff, the feelings. I can. And that's why I'm just now learning to sit in the feelings and be with them and be present in the moment, because I've read so many self-help books. I can pretty much tell you everything wrong with you because I was searching for answers for me, and intellectualizing it is not being present with it. Like, you have to actually sit and feel it. And this is a different place, and it's a different place not to have to name everything.
Yeah.
Have you found yourself there yet? Where?
I mean, the way I sit and feel things is to journal, to write it. I recognize that I'm feeling a tightness in my chest, or I'm feeling irritable. That usually translates to I'm feeling something else that I need to. So it just sort of.
So when you journal, you just start writing and.
Yeah. And I'm not necessarily consistent with it. I mean, it's truly like when I'm having the feeling, that's what I go do. It used to be when I was having a feeling, I'm going to go eat a cheeseburger, or I'm going to go make myself a drink, or
I'll do both. I'll journal with a cheeseburger.
I'm trying really hard to just stick to journaling, or taking myself outside for a walk. I think I feel very fortunate in this moment in time to have the luxury of working from home and luxury of working when I want to. So as feelings are coming up, I'm always wearing my tennis shoes. So I'll just walk out the door and do a lap and come back and try and process that way.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about journaling a lot on here, just getting the noise out. And a lot of times for me, it's like, I don't know what I'm feeling, what to feel. And I just start writing. I don't want to write, Well,
I mean, I can just write like, I'm really just pissed off and I don't even know why.
Yeah.
And then, you just kind of keep going and you keep asking
and then
why.
Before it's over, you get to the bottom of something.
Yeah.
And my clarity comes I've not been even consistent with this. Like I used to be in the gym 24/7 and for all the wrong reasons.
I was going to say, we
and
diagnose that.
yeah, all the wrong reasons. And just for that external validation. And it has been a challenge that I'm in this place of growing and changing and healing. And then I go to the gym and recently I have just like had almost an anxiety attack. 3 a.m. I get up at 3 a.m, drive to the gym across the mountain, pull up and go, nope, and turn around and come home. And I'm like, what is this thing? And it's almost like I don't trust myself with my reasoning behind it. And am I trying to get people to look at me? Am I trying to look a certain way for others? Am I skipping out on my self-work and going to fill it with this? And just really this week I've started going to the gym and Michael's going with me, and it's really cool to just relax and go, that's enough. Like you don't have to like be in a wheelchair tomorrow. Like just do enough, like do what's healthy. And yeah, that's all been a process.
I would say that, well, Kevin and I talk a lot about exercise and fitness and all of those things. And we're on different ends of that spectrum where he like wants to murder himself in the gym every day.
Yes.
And he's got his reasons, and they're not yours, obviously. And I don't think his having anything to do with external validation or any of that kind of stuff, but he has his reasons. And I'm like on this side of post Miss America life, and spent a lot of time hating myself and a lot of time feeling shame for gaining weight after Miss America. And like, I'm not good because I didn't stay.
Isn't it funny to look
like
back
that
and think, oh, that was weight gain?
Well,
like what the world looked at.
Well, yes. But now I'm in such a place that I don't really care about any of that. I just know that like my heart needs to be healthy.
Yeah.
I just want my clothes to fit. And, so we kind of have to meet each other. Like he pulls me this way, like, come on, you can do a little bit more. And I'm like, fine.
I just want to climb the stairs.
I'm like, you don't need to break your ankle. So like, let's come this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait till you get older. You'll be like, that looks dangerous, that sidewalk with a crack in it. And I'm like, I used to jump off shit, and now I'm like, whoa, that's not safe.
Yeah, I took one, my stride was too long, and now my hamstrings hurt.
Yes, I'll never do that again. I've really enjoyed this. This has been fun, and it's been fun for people to get to know another side of you. I know the listeners are going to love that. And, we love pageant girls as gay boys. And my partner this morning, he's like, tell her to bring her crown. Honestly, in Venezuela, it is
too late.
Everything for them, Yeah. And so this has been good. I really appreciate you coming to do that. And is there anything like, do you have a website, a blog, or anything that people can go to? Or
yeah, people can always follow me on Instagram. I'm at It's Mallory Hagan, or TikTok at It's Mallory H. And if you want to check out my website, it's malloryhagan.com.
Thank you so much. And I'll put that in all the notes. Thank you guys. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please like and share, comment. That really helps us to be seen and heard by other people in our community. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share with your friends and family. Also, if you have comments, questions, or maybe you want to share your story, you can email me at raginghardonpodcast@gmail.com.